Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about getting your ex back, which this individual that sent in his story has gotten his ex back a long time ago. I did some coaching with him when he was in the middle of the breakup. Now he's been back with her, I believe, 6 to 8 months, maybe under a year. They've had some issues, but this is a classic case. Just because you get back together doesn't mean the problems, or in this case, he describes the patterns, haven't been broken or changed. And that's okay. That's 100% okay, because it's a discovery mission when you go for that second round of being together, okay? And sometimes you get back together out of loneliness, out of pity. Sometimes you get back together because you're like, let's try this again. We realize the problems we had, let's work on them. But the patterns float back to the top. And a lot of times this is due to the fact that someone didn't get help with their issues. Someone didn't really work on them, and patterns are hard to break, just like bad habits. So I'm going to get into this today. The story's on deck. The client of mine wanted to do some live coaching, but right now he's just like, finances are low, which I totally understand. He goes, so let me write out my full story, which if you want to write out your full story and send it into writemac.com, have me unpack it. That's available at $25. So it's actually the first step too. And any breakup or any situation, if you can write it out, it's therapeutic right there, because you have sequence to how you're writing it out. You're getting everything out uninterrupted. You're not having someone give you some kind of lame piece of advice like, oh, just take her back or just do this when you're talking to your buddies or your colleagues or your friends. So I definitely recommend you go this route. So let's just start out with some things to talk about. When the same patterns come back after you're back together, okay? So everyone's scraping and clawing. I just want them back no matter what. The reality is, careful what you wish for, okay? There's a reason you broke up. There's a reason on your end that they broke up with you or accepted the breakup, right? Because even if someone, quote unquote, dumps you or leaves you, you still have to, on your end, figure out why. And then you have to find reasons to accept why. Over time, that's your only way of getting through a breakup. And actually, them coming back is partially your acceptance of breaking up in the first place, because if you were an ass and you were broken up with them, and you couldn't accept it, and you call them 1,000 times, and you keep texting and emailing them and trying all these things, you just push them away further. So your acceptance brought them back. Now, if you get back together for a period of time of 3 months, 6 months, and the same problems or the same patterns that were a problem float back to the surface, you got to ask yourself, it's time to consider, are you really compatible? Are you really compatible long-term? And that's a good question to ask, because a lot of times short term, the first year, the second year, it's rose petals and wine glasses. The intimacy's outstanding, attraction's high. And then when you live together, you got to share bills. You have to do adult responsibilities. You got dogs. Maybe you got kids. I don't know. You got all these other entanglements that are way deeper than the relationship that started with dating and intimacy and attraction and fun. And so when you get into the heart of a relationship that is full time, those patterns will rise back up. So number one, identify the patterns that lead to the problems. A lot of times say there's problems in your relationship. Someone might say, oh, we have bad communication. That's a generalization. What are examples of the bad communication? Okay. Number two, the second reboot of the relationship, are those patterns really gone? So you're starting a new relationship, you get back together, you cry in each other's arms, you get intimate, you have great dinners, you go, we're going to get back together, let's do this. I miss you, you miss me. And then all of a sudden, you got to look at this is a second version. This isn't the same relationship. This is a relationship that's going to work on the problems from before, if not erase them. Okay. Some problems you can, if someone, for example, a good one is someone gets a job, right? And the job's toxic for your relationship. They have like a bartender's a really tough job to date the person. They're around single people. They drink a lot. The people they're around drink a lot. They usually stay out late. They make decent to good money and tips so they can go back out afterwards. It's not ideal. Those relationships, there's a pattern built in the relationship where that person's coming home late. They're drinking too much. They're flirting, etc. Now, if you break up with someone like that, if they get a new job or go back to school or do whatever, That's going to break one of those patterns, and that's going to change the person. That deserves another shot because the problem was the job, whether they realized it or not. You see where I'm going with this? So patterns can't be really broke as far as if someone reacts a certain way. For example, if you have an individual that stonewalls, you have problems and they don't talk. They won't talk to you. And that's the way they deal with problems. They ignore you. If you're a talker, if you're someone that likes to talk things out, this is going to be extremely difficult for you. Those kind of patterns are only broke through probably therapy, the individual realizing that they don't want to do this because they've developed that stonewalling tactic over a long period of time. Number 3, can you accept them or adapt to them? So whatever problems or patterns that you didn't like before, can you adapt? Sometimes after you break up, you're like, you know what? I can deal with the fact that you're a little bit messy. You know what? I can deal with the fact that you're not going to get home at a decent hour on Friday nights because that's when you work late. I don't know. You adapt or accept a problem that you had before when you broke up that now seems petty or not a big deal. But then when you get back in the relationship, the problem becomes big again. So this is big, right? And that's what you always have to realize about these patterns and problems. If you can't fix them and you can't accept them and you can't adapt them, reject them, you got to move on because you're just running into a brick wall over and over again. Number 4, what's your role in the patterns? So how have you went about dealing with them? Okay. So if one of the patterns is the individual stonewalling you when they have a problem, meaning stonewalling mean they just ignore you, they won't talk to you for 5 hours and you don't know what's going on. Right? So you go, all right, last time we were in the relationship, instead of respecting them, giving them space and time to decompress and respecting the fact that they need 2 or 3 hours just to calm down sometimes, I'm not going to be the same guy that knocked on the door when they said they needed an hour to be alone. So you made an effort to accommodate that issue, right? And you were happy to do it. Now you've accommodated and still having a problem with it. You see where I'm going with this? All right. So in the future, just for the people that are watching this live stream or anyone that's on deck, let me know, would it be helpful or would you think it would be nice if I put the story on the screen while I'm talking about it so you could follow along? I don't think I'm going to do that today because I have to work on the fact of how big the type is. I know this individual wouldn't mind someone reading the story, but let me know in the comments. Is that something that would be helpful or useful in following along? Would that be something of interest, or do you want to just see my face talking the whole time? All right. Any questions before I get into this story? Any comments? All right, because I only have 30 minutes today. I got a call right after this. So let's get into it. Hey, Coach Mac, it's been a while since we last spoke. I got a lot of updates. My girlfriend and I have gotten back together. Thanks for your help. But we fell back into the same patterns. I think that's the key word here, patterns. Okay. We got back together and for a few weeks, things felt like they were back to the honeymoon phase, but that was actually short-lived because immediately after that, we both slowly started to slip back into our old patterns. And we both felt them slowly starting to come to a head. So this is a good example. You get back together, you're intimate again, the honeymoon phase starts all over, you're no longer lonely. You fill that void of sleeping together again, being together again, because if both of you have been apart for months and you didn't find someone else, there's a void. I can't say how she felt, but I could emphasize with how she could have felt after deeply examining what she said and trying to read between the lines, both at the same time. My pattern that I fell back into was trying to create this girlfriend that I thought she was trying to portray herself to be, constantly telling me that she thought I wanted to hear. And because she said these things, making promises after promises, but never actually following through with those promises, it triggered my over-accountability pattern to her. So what I would call that is overcompensating. Specifically for him, it's over-accountability. So he's saying I'm being overly accountable out of my character, out of what I would be comfortable with to make things right. Now, when you do that, what that does is it builds resentment. because you're going out of your way. You're doing something you don't really want to do just for them. And if you keep doing that and you don't catch yourself, at some point you get resentment, and resentment leads to contempt, and contempt leads to breaking up. I was so robotic in my dealing with her words that I overexerted her by constantly reminding her, you said you were going to do X, Y, Z, and I don't appreciate you not following through with what you said, and you were going to do, and on like that. I've always been the type of person that when someone says they're going to do it, act, or behave a certain way, I have a sense of obligation, fulfillment, expectation from their end. Otherwise, it's just not caring or valuing me as a person. I feel disrespected and extremely undervalued, and especially feeling taken for granted. So those are extreme feelings, extreme words. You're someone that if someone doesn't keep their word for you, you have a real issue with it. Not everyone's like that. Some people are more loose about it. Sometimes it's a case-by-case situation. Sometimes you go, oh, you told me you were going to pick up the kids, or we were going to get dinner tonight, and now you bailed on it. But if to me, if the reason's good enough, you know what, I came down with the flu, I'm not feeling well. If the reason's good enough, you can understand. But if you're dealing with, because you're not being specific here about what promises we're breaking for what issues, you're feeling like her words not being kept over and over again. That's a lack of trust. That puts you in a situation where you don't know what to believe, and you keep having to give in. And this breeds resentment and contempt. And worst case scenario, this leads to someone giving an ultimatum saying, look, if you don't change, I'm going to break up with you, because you get so tired of the result. So you're going through the motions, which you call a pattern, of overcompensating, fulfilling this person, telling them things that they want to hear, and you're not getting back what you want to hear. Okay. Then I would fall into her pattern of, well, I would do this more. I didn't feel so pressured to do so. So I would lay off for a while. And when I would notice she was totally forgot about what I wanted, I would remind her again. And then it came back to the same cycle. So this would be something that if we were doing a live coaching, I'd want some examples of this. So when someone breaks something down like this, we got to get a layer or two deeper. Give me the concrete examples of this. Sometimes it turned into arguments, and sometimes it would turn into near miss breakups. So she's saying, what you're asking me to do is fine, but just lay off. You're saying I laid off, but the result was the same. Okay, that's a problem for you. I would like to know specific examples. Then after about 3 months of being back together and not noticing how we were falling into our old patterns. Patterns are habitual. They're subconscious programs. You don't even know you're doing it, right? It's like you get ready for the shower. You don't realize how many things you do to get ready for a shower. You grab your towel. You got to take your clothes off. You got to check the water. You check to see if there's soap. There's so many things involved in that subconsciously that you think, oh, I just take a shower. No. When you drive a car, you got to put the keys in the door. You got to put the keys in the lock. You got to look at the gas. You're doing so many things subconsciously. It's the same thing with patterns, okay? She started to slowly distance herself more and more. The sex started becoming less passionate, and the quality time we used to spend together was becoming slowly less frequent. So right there, that tells me that intimacy, or sex, is a trade-off that you're willing to give. So, for example, a lot of times, and this isn't just this particular individual, they'll deal with something that's a problem, bad communication, not keeping her word, maybe on chores or small things, if the intimacy is good. If the intimacy is not good, then it's like, well, that too. And this is very common. So, like, people will deal with things, but if, for example, maybe money is something, you let go of the fact that, oh, you have to pay for everything, but intimacy is not good, then I'm not going to deal with this anymore. There's trade-offs. You got to figure out what your trade-offs are. Where are you getting value in the relationship, as shallow as that sounds? What are you valuing that they're doing? And what are you not valuing that you're like, well, I'm getting this, but I'm not getting that, right? This is a prime example of why when people are married with kids, they stay in a relationship they're not happy in because they go, I just want my kids to have a father. I don't want to break up the family. I don't want to get a new house or apartment. I don't want to sell things. That's a trade-off, okay? This has started, so the sex started becoming less passionate. The quality time we used to spend together is becoming slowly less frequent. And this started a snowball effect of taking turns on panicking about the state of our relationship, with our patterns bubbling up each time. We would make efforts to try and compromise based on our best ability to those moments. But they always seem to feel in vain because in the end, neither one of us really got what we wanted out of it. She was still telling me what I wanted to hear and never actually doing what she said she would do. And I would pressure her into demonstrating authentic integrity. So right there, that's a problem. You're admitting that you pressured her into doing something. Now, if you're pressuring or pushing with force, I don't mean with your hand force, but you're pressuring any individual that's an adult, you're gonna get pushback. Saying that, if you're feeling like that's the only way you can do things, this is a time to break up. We were both stubborn. Neither one of us wouldn't budge until the other budged first. So this is grounds to break up. You realizing this, you writing this says, look, we're both dug in. We both have ways about us that are not compatible or congruent right now. We've tried this twice. Is it time to really go through with breaking up? And that might be the case right now. That doesn't mean you had a bad relationship or you did bad things. You're just not compatible long term. And sometimes it takes a year and a half, 2 years to be around each other to realize that. Then the emotional hostage crisis started from her end when she would continue for months that she was going to leave because she felt I was pressuring her to be someone who wasn't authentically her. So there's an underlying theme. You're pressuring her. You feel like the pressure is needed for her to get things done. She feels like the pressure is actually working against the situation. Okay? Pressure in a relationship is usually not good, right? Usually people do not want to be pressured into doing things. Now, some people like pressure, right? She even said on numerous occasions that she lost herself and didn't know who she was anymore and that she needed to leave to find herself again. So that's a statement that's not necessarily you, that's her. She's already put that into place. Her words are saying she's at the door. She's just waiting for reasons for you to open it up and let her out. Doesn't necessarily mean you're all bad. It means I need to find myself. I don't even know where I am. I'm spun right now. And of course, I would always come back with that she still needed to fill her actions to match her words. I mean, again, I would need examples of this that she still hasn't yet done, still being just empty and meaningless words with no actions backing them up. Until now, I was at the point of her never fulfilling what she said she was going to do. And that one last time of her saying she needed to find herself. So this is a recurring theme. Like if it doesn't happen in a month or 2 months, she's speaking that into happening. Right now, she's been saying this for about 6 months by this point, and I flipped my lid. I stormed into the closet, ripping clothes out of the closet, throwing them on the bed, voicing frustrated profanities that I was done with her holding me emotionally hostage. I know I was the nail in the coffin. In fact, you had a session on this right after it happened. Another 4 months went by with our pattern still continuing, but now it felt like we were just going through the motions of just accepting them and having that it is what it is. They'll never change. So why fight it attitude? What's funny is that this attitude seemed to work. Well, you're taking away the pressure. Hello, I don't know what happened. Some technical difficulties. Let me know if you guys are back on deck. The camera just went off on the live stream. So just confirm that you guys can see and hear everything that's going on. Did it come back yet? It's saying it's still on. All right. Confirm that we're good. Thanks, Laquita. You appreciate it, hon. All right. Sorry about that. Thank you. They'll never change, so why fight it attitude. So this is a great point to just, you get back together, you have problems, you have issues, the same problems are coming back up, and you go, all right, I'm just going to adapt and accept this. And by you accepting it actually makes it less turbulent, right? Okay, so you're like, yeah, these are things I don't like, but I'm going to accept them the way she's communicating, or she's not keeping promises about certain things. Okay. And you're like, actually, the relationship's improved because there's less pressure and there's more acceptance. Okay. But over time, this is what happens. It's like slowly boiling water that's going to overflow and cause a problem on the stove. So if it's not your pleasure to accept those things, if it's not something that you've come to a conclusion as a good thing, in other words, you know what? Maybe I was too forceful in the way I was demanding certain things in the relationship. But if you're doing those things and secretly on the sidelines, you're like, why am I doing this? I hate being this way. It's a matter of time, whether that's 3 months, 5 months, where you're going to lose it. Probably slam an ultimatum like either leave or we're done or you change, because you'll just get fed up because you're taking something you don't want to take, right? Sometimes people have some things where like, oh, it is what it is. Maybe you have a partner that's always late. Okay. And it just annoys the hell out of you. Now, someone that's 10 minutes late is different than someone that's an hour, 2 hours late. But over time, if that's just continued, you're just going to lose it. Okay. So let's get back to it. I got about 15 minutes to wrap this up. All right. Then out of nowhere, about 1 month later, she hit me with it one more time. I still feel like I lost myself and I need to be myself to discover who I am again. I was shocked. And just keep in mind, this is a narrative and a theme. So what happens is someone had built, when people speak these things, these declaration statements, I would call it, it's going to come true. Something like this, I lost myself. I need to find myself. Okay. I don't know what that means to her, but she's lost right now. And it might not have so much to do with you, but you're frustrated because you want to help her find herself, or you want to direct her in a way that's going to be good for your relationship. But she's saying, I need to discover who I am again, and that's not going to involve being with you. I was shocked. I told her that we were starting to get along better. That's when she agreed that she loved me. We were getting along so much better, and how much she loved me for starting to be the guy who wasn't pressuring her anymore. But as much as she loved me, she didn't love herself, and kept bringing up very far in the past comments I made when we were full-fledged in our pattern, stating that she could see how unhappy she was making me. This individual probably needs full-time, once a week, twice a week therapy with a coach or a therapist that really has a good rapport with them, so they can unpack these issues and get to the bottom of why they're lost. And if she goes to one therapist or coach, I tell everyone this, and it doesn't vibe or it doesn't work out, go to another one. And I'd say that if you're low on money right now, find a way. This is something that you need to invest in when you're lost. When you're feeling like you have an internal problem or insecurity within you. And the hard thing is having your partner deal on the other end, it's a conflict of interest because they're your partner. So when they try to help you, you might take some of their help personally. And this is what she needs right now. And I don't know what her problem is, but she doesn't just talk to someone one time. She needs to talk to him multiple times, him or her. Then I proposed to her that we take a step back from our relationship, remove the titles of boyfriend, girlfriend, and just start dating one another again. She agreed, and that's when the sex became very magnetic, powerful, and passionate. She would open up more to me, start to actually do the things she said she would do, and really cling to me, crying on my lap that she loved me so much and was afraid that she was going to lose me. So here you go. You got 0 to 100. So relationships where individuals go 0 to 100, where they're magnetic, powerful, passionate, and then 0. This is a pattern. It's tough because when you're at 100 and they're all in, you're king of the roost. You thought that this was the best relationship. She's all over you. You're even welcoming the fact that she's clinging to you, crying in your lap. This is kind of unhealthy, actually. So this pattern of 0 to 100, just like people that do a drug and they, smoke a pipe and they go into ecstasy in 10 seconds, there's going to be a big come down from that. Someone that drinks 2 cups of coffee in their first hour of the day, there's going to be a come down in that. All right. So in this particular case, when you're going to 0 to 100 in the relationship and the intimacy, there's probably going to be a stage that comes down from that. It's hard to sustain that. And the new pattern of passionate sex, her opening up to me and continuing to do what she said she would do. And all the while I kept my end by backing off and stepping back and just allowing her to come to me and being there for her when she did, by giving her my undivided attention. Still, with us being this way, she would say that she didn't know who she was and needed to leave to find who she was, bringing up very distant comments made several months back. It felt like the new way of us getting along was overpowered by her past, not just me, but everyone else in her past who she referenced numerous times, who pressured her to be, act, and behave a certain way. So right there's the root to the problem. She's reenacting past relationships, whether that's relationships with family, friends, colleagues, or ex-boyfriends. She's saying, this is how it's always is for me, and this is how it is in this relationship. Now, knowing that, she needs to go to a therapist or a coach like myself and go to work on this more than just one session. She needs prolonged work on this and to unpack the individual narratives or stories that she has surrounding this. I told her that she had the freedom to do what she wished, and that I completely understood how she felt, but I wouldn't support her walking away when we just started to work on things out long overdue. Again, another passionate sex session followed by hours of her clinging on me, crying that she was afraid she was going to lose me, and me biting my bottom lip. I'm sure you can guess by now that I was really feeling drained, frustrated, and stretched very thin. By this point, it's like she was sucking me dry like an emotional vampire, hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, again, again, again. All right, so just realize that you have a role in this. You're accepting that behavior, knowing that there's, what do you like better, the hot or the cold? So when you get in the hot, you're like, all right, now you're writing this out. You're seeing this pattern, and you have a choice right now. You can get out of the pattern. You could stop playing this game. It takes 2 to tango. You're involved in this pattern, and subliminally, unconsciously, subconsciously, you know how to get to the hot point, but you're tired of the cold point, right? And I'm going to say it one more time. She needs individual therapy to figure out her gatekeepers. When I talk about gatekeepers, there's a narrative or a story that's making this behavior a pattern for her repeatedly. She's aware of it. The next day, she told me that she thought about what we talked about, and she decided she loved me too much to leave and wanted to stay and work things out. I felt somewhat relieved, but deep down, I was screaming, shake this crazy bee, I'll say. Once and for all, you had your chance for her to leave, and she's back, you dumbass. You could have been rid of her already. What's wrong with you? Then I got ready for work, and we kissed, and she cried again, hugged me, wouldn't let go, clung to me for dear life. Yeah, I was feeling cringy, but played it cool, hoping I could get over this and get back to normal. So this is just the narrative of the relationship. It's going to be hot and cold, up and down. That's the way it's been. You're now realizing internally with your own internal voice, you don't want this. It's throwing you in all different directions, making you feel uncomfortable. When I got home, she told me her dad called her and told her he was very sick and could possibly be dying, and that he had no one to take care of him, so she needed to go take care of him. I'll be honest, I felt very relieved because at this point, I needed a serious break. Well, if that's the case, you've already took a step back by not being boyfriend, girlfriend. So that was kind of you saying like, look, let's just take a step back. We take away the title of being boyfriend, girlfriend. That's extremely hard to prolong because the title of being official, when you're still hanging out and you're together, are you going to be okay with a guy hitting on her or her answering text? Because that's what you're doing when you're removing the title. It's a situation where you're really trying, but it's inevitable that you're going to break up. You don't go from being together, living together, having a full-on relationship to taking that step back Now, if you break up for 6 months, 3 months, and you start dating again, that's different. Just going to dating again from breakup as if it's going to be some smooth thing, it's no bueno. If you feel like you needed a serious break, right, and this was the time to get it, then you need to break up and bet on yourself. And you need to get in a corner to get your head straight, because this up and down, you're reacting to what she does. So you don't realize it. You're like, oh, she did this. You have a role in it. I told her to go and take care of him, which is the right thing to do. And we could pick things up when she got back. Again, she clung to me, cried, and kept stating she was afraid she was going to lose me. So with her, she gets triggered by the fact if she's going to lose you. She gets triggered by the fact if you're pressuring her about a topic. Long story short, I thought she left to be with her dad until one of her friends called me and told me that she was at her friend's house just a couple towns over and that she's been there for the last several days. This was the voice again saying, what the hell is wrong with you with this crazy bee? Later that night, around midnight, I drove past her friend's house when I know they'd all be sleeping, and sure enough, there was her car. Her dad was dying, but she's been at her friend's house for 5 days. I texted her, hey, how's your dad doing? She replied, he's okay. So the problem with this is now you have lying involved. Lying was never a problem. Keeping your word is a form of lying, but this is a direct lie on a serious situation where you thought she was seeing her dad. Now, it's completely possible that she went to her friend's house first, was emotional about leaving you, but her dad's really sick, but she just never made it there. That doesn't excuse her lying and saying he's okay, right? She didn't directly lie, it sounds like, and say that she was at her friend's house. Bottom line, you guys are at the end of the rope here, okay? So you caught her in a lie. Anyway, I wanted to share the story with you and for your viewers to know getting back together with an ex isn't always the best course of action. Listen, just because you got back together and it didn't work out doesn't mean it was the best course of action. You needed to figure it out. You had an open loop. You still wanted to be together. You missed her. You worked on yourself. We did multiple coaching sessions that were good, that were things that we worked on outside of her that I think were really good for you. So your breakup and getting back together with her, it wasn't lost. It wasn't a horrible thing. A lot of people do that. It was a discovery mission. You went back into it. You did your best. You guys had great intimacy. You had great moments. You learned a lot. You learned more about what you want and what you don't want. Coming out of this relationship right now, he says, I'm relieved she's gone and I feel like I can breathe again, and that's going to take some time to lick my wounds and come back to life because I'm literally so drained right now. I'm the one who feels like I have to find myself again. That's completely fine. So this is a situation where you're with someone that's up and down all around, and it drove you nuts. And sometimes after a breakup, you can be relieved. And guess what? You're still going to miss her because you're going to miss the intimacy, because there was good parts of the relationship. There was good parts of her. And that 0 to 100 where she is clingy, she's all over you and she wants you, you like that. That's something that got you back into the relationship. And so right now, you got to keep your word. You got to keep your word and stick to this breakup, because you just said, I need a break. I've been drained, and go all in on no contact. And if what gets you going is the fact that she lied to you about her dad, and I think that there's more to that story probably. The bottom line is you guys need a good month or 2 months probably to reassess what you really want. So you being away from her, and that's a big thing, that you feel relieved being alone at the house. That says that you've been constantly obsessed, pleasing her, going out of your way for her, and you've lost track of taking care of yourself and what you really want. And so she hasn't all been bad. And one of the things that gets you back that you don't realize from your story is good intimacy, because you keep mentioning that as a thermometer of your relationship. And that, I'm not judging you for that, because that's a lot of guys. That's why you're in a relationship, is for the intimacy. And so when you would get back with her, you would mention over and over again, oh, we had great sex. Okay. So that was what would draw you back in, right? That's what you valued high in the relationship that was good, and that was your trade-off. Now, when you are alone for the next 2 or 3 weeks and you're going through this, that's what's going to make you miss her probably even more too. And for you, you got to deal with that and be honest with yourself and go, hey, I got to bet on myself now to find someone equal or higher value, or better yet, just compatible. So for your personality and your character and who you are, this woman, this girlfriend that you've had 2 times that you guys worked on things, maybe you guys aren't compatible long term. That's not her fault. That's not your fault. That doesn't mean she's crazy. It just means you guys are on 2 different lanes going 2 different directions. And you could say like this, bye-bye. Because right now what you guys were doing, instead of going in 2 different lanes, because you like your lane, you like who you are, you keep getting pulled in the other direction. It's like traveling in a boat with the anchor out, right? You need to give yourself some time to bet on yourself and to think, hey, can I meet someone else? Because this, at the second time you've been together, you've just reconfirmed this relationship doesn't work for both of you. And if it's going to work, these patterns that she's running, which she doesn't know, she's not doing this on purpose. It's not like she's like, oh, let me go 0 to 100. Oh, she's confused. She's conflicted. Her model of relationships is one that is unsure of things. Anytime you go into talking about something that she feels pressured, or perhaps you raise your tone, she curls up in a ball and she's doesn't want to talk, and that isn't the way you communicate. And you think she's crazy, there's something wrong with her. This is just a culmination of her life experiences and what she's been through. And like I said, therapist or coach, and she can go to work on those things as an individual, because she keeps mentioning, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. Okay. You're not the guy with the map and the compass. You're trying, right? Sometimes when you're lost and you don't know which direction, you need to be alone for a little bit. You need to figure out, all right, where am I at right now? And a lot of people are really uncomfortable with being alone and doing that, but that's where it starts. Reassessing, what do I really want? What am I really looking for? Okay. So I hope that helps you. If anyone has a breakup story you want to share, go to writemac.com. I do have an appointment right now for a live coaching session with a client, so I do have to go. Everyone that's been on, it's been good. It's been grand. Sex with Gods, you are appreciated. Laquita, kind thoughts to you. Rob IS, always appreciated. Petty Betty, hope to talk to you soon. Brand new Skinner, keep being you. Go Bulls. And that's about Paltry Flowers. I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. Take care, G Money.